Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Will with Schedule Fly, and I am on the phone with Meherwan Irani. He is in Asheville. Meherwan has been on our podcast multiple times. Some of his team have been on the podcast. He's in our book. We love Meherwan and have a lot of respect for him, and always appreciate the time. I mean, he's a very just inspiring, creative, thoughtful, intentional guy. And, as you know, Meherwan, as I've told you, man, I mean, we always learn a lot from you every time. So thanks for taking the time to do this, my friend.
Thanks, Will. Always great to be on the podcast. Likewise, we love what you guys do and love that you take the time to reach out and talk to the owners. I mean, that's huge, especially in a time like this right now.
Well, it certainly is different subject matter than we're used to talking about. So, we right now, what I'm trying to do really is just, take 15 or 20 minutes with as many owners as I can, and kind of took the week off last week because just everybody was kind of getting through, all this legislation actually being rolled out and PPP loans and all that. But, I really want to keep a dialogue going with as many folks as I can through this because things change so quickly. It's amazing how quickly everything changes, week to week, day to day. And, the big thing I'm curious right now about is what your experience has been with the PPP lending process. Have you all done that, and what's happened with that so far?
We've actually so far had a pretty good experience with the process, and I'm talking specifically about the PPP process. I mean, like everybody else, we were getting the same information in dribs and drabs, and waiting for the forms and waiting for guidance from the SBA and so on and so forth. But and reading all the articles out there about what's going on. But I think for us, a huge asset was having a close relationship with a local bank, Asheville Savings. They're not called First Bank, that we've been banking with back when we were just a small, one single restaurant, Paini in Asheville. And developing a relationship with the people in the bank, where, fast forward 11 years, not only are they going to bat for us, because for a small community bank, we are one of their bigger customers. Whereas if you were dealing with Wells Fargo, we'd be like a nothing customer, right? Or a Bank of America. And not only were they going to bat for us, but I also realized that in moments like this, you want to push harder for people that you like,
Yep.
And all these years of us just being good people in the community, and we've talked in previous podcasts about mind blasting our philosophy, and how I've always extended that way past the customer to everybody we deal with: the postman, the parking meter attendant, the guy you bank with, the teller at the window. Like, how do we use every opportunity we have to blow their minds, even when it's completely unexpected? Well, the payoff for us, was huge. Not to say that you do these things because you're building up, a relationship bank or anything like that. You do them because that's just who you are. But having said that, I think we were the second business in all of Buncombe County to get funded for our PPP program. And that's because we had somebody at the bank that went over and above to help make this happen for us, purely on the basis of us being the good guys.
Wow, Mayor. So you've already gotten funding?
Pardon me?
You've already gotten funding?
Yeah, we got funding on Thursday.
Holy cow. Well, congrats, my friend. That's fantastic. Were you satisfied with the amount?
Yeah, I mean, so we applied individually for each business separately. And again, this is all part of the learning process. Initially, I applied for a lump sum of the payroll of all the restaurants under our umbrella company, Paini Restaurant Group. Then our banker again, said, "Hey, Meherwan, I don't think they're gonna. Each entity they're probably gonna limit how much we give each entity. So you're better off filing for all your restaurants separately as separate entities." Which is then I scrambled till 2 a.m, refilling out applications and getting the paperwork on all the entities individually. And so off the 7 entities we filed for, we got funding for 2 for Buxton Hall and for Spice Wallah. Which were critical. And I just got word today that another one of our entities is looks like it's moving up in the queue. So yeah, but we got, when did we turn the forms in? Like Friday, right? It was April 1st or where it was. It was when they opened it up. By Tuesday, we heard that, or we were way ahead of the queue, and by Thursday, we were signed paperwork in a parking lot, wearing, face masks and disposable pens, and got funded. Yeah, on Thursday.
Congrats, man! That's awesome. Well, yes, going back to what you were talking about, the concept of mind blasting, which we have talked about before, and it's something you are so good at, is really just delivering over, above, and beyond what anybody would ever expect in every interaction you have with your customers, with your team, with your community. That's, one of the things that it's been a common theme, I think, on this podcast over the years and through all the content that we've been so fortunate to capture and redeploy from folks like you. One of the main themes that I see from so many, just successful people, not just owners, but people in your industry, is doing things like that which are immeasurable, and meaning that there are certain things you can do, that in your business that you can measure,
Right.
costs and so forth. But the immeasurable things, to me, I've always been fascinated with that concept, because that is, if you focus a lot of energy on those things in a positive way, then oftentimes the things that you can measure become the byproduct. If you're focused on the things you can measure, it's a different story. But if you're focused on those immeasurable things, then, generating revenue, generating profits, building a successful business just becomes the byproduct of that. And then it certainly does. You don't do it for the reason of times like this and it paying off, but gosh knows it sure does at times like this. So,
Yeah.
man, what an awesome story. And kudos to, you said they're called First Bank now. They were Asheville Savings, and now it's First Bank.
Yeah, it's Asheville Savings. It's First Bank. Jared Perkins, is our banker there. I mean, and here's funny. I mean, I've been a relationship guy my whole life. I just like people. I like people I like. I enjoy, getting to know people. I met Jared when I was back selling real estate back before Chai Paini. Way before Chai Paini, and he was working at Bank of America, and he was just working as one of the personal bankers, I guess, right? And I was in the bank frustrated that I had this really large check, because in the real estate business is feast or famine, right? You don't make any money for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden you sell something, you get this big paycheck. So I took it into the bank, and they had put a hold on it for about a week because of the amount, right? And I was pretty broke at the time, and I needed that money to clear my bank account. So I walked in and asked to talk to somebody, and I met this gentleman, Jared, and I went in, and he was immediately willing and able to help, and said, "Oh, no problem, I'll put expedited," and sure enough, within a few days, he had it cleared up. Well, I followed him to First Bank when he moved there, just, again, as an individual, and then when Chai Paini started, I continued banking with First Bank, Asheville Savings back then, because of this one person. And I have over and over again tried to talk about and instill and inspire people on my team, and said, just be as gracious and as nice to anybody and everybody you can. You just never know when that person's going to be able to do something for you. And you don't do it because of that, but, I mean, think of the fate of me walking into a bank and meeting this one person. And it's easy to say, well, it was luck. But on the flip side, I was like, no, it was an attitude. It was like, no matter who was sitting in that chair, I would have the same attitude. And if they were as nice to me as this person was, I would follow them to wherever they are and have business with them. So it's funny. I was talking with Katie, our finance director, and as we've gotten bigger, there's been lots of opportunities for us to say, the small little business that we do business with, we've outgrown them, and whether it's our accountant or whether it's our legal firm, or whether it's our bank, and say we need to move to a company that can accommodate us as a bigger customer. Well, I always pushed back against that and resisted that idea, because I just intuitively felt like, man, I like dealing with people, and when the shit hits the fan, it's people that are going to save you, not a website or an 800 number. And I mean, thank the stars that we stuck to our guns and continue to stay local, whether it's our insurance company, whether it's our bank, whether it's our accounting firm. Small local businesses have saved our ass in this situation. Pardon my French.
No, man, that's exactly right. That's the downside of. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that when everything is really tight and really efficient and really automated and all this stuff, it's all right until something like this happens. And you need some slack and some redundancy and relationships and people. Those things, gosh, they're so valuable right now. To your point, I mean the value of that is increases at a very nonlinear exponential rate when you're dealing with a bank there that helped you versus, gosh knows, I haven't talked to anybody. And I don't mean to put Wells Fargo, we used to B of A or any of these big ones. I don't need to speak negatively about them, but they're struggling with this right now. They can't keep up with the process. There's too many applications. It's a real big issue. So their value proposition is quickly upside down versus First Bank there. It's just this is a heroic moment for them. And then
absolutely. And I'm sure, and hopefully for other local businesses in Nashville that bank with them.
Yeah, I was speaking to Brett from Sup Dogs earlier, and he went through this with Wells, and I just posted his episode. It'll be on here a little bit, but he was saying, he found a bank out in Oklahoma because he couldn't find a bank. Like he deals with Wells, great relationship, they've always helped out, but guys like his banker's like, I'm sorry, man, there's nothing I can do. So through Twitter, he found some CFO at a bank out in Oklahoma. Brett's here in Greenville, and he's now going through the process. He said, they made it real easy, and of course their upside is, okay, we're back, folks. My batteries died, but we still got Meherwan here, and I was just saying that that bank out there that's helping Brett, this is going to go through, and of course now that. Because of technology, you don't necessarily have to have that. You can bank kind of anywhere, and if he's going to build a relationship with somebody over the phone and whatever, and they help him out, then now he's, that bank's got this opportunity to earn all of his deposits and everything else, even though they're in Oklahoma and he's in North Carolina, and that's the real big upside of these community banks and the relationships that they have with people and the small businesses. I couldn't agree more, man. That's what a great. Man, glad you stuck to your guns. Your gut told you something, and it paid off, didn't it?
Yeah, quite often intuition is. Like I said, there's a combination of the baggage you come with, the way you're wired, and I was just fortunate enough to be wired to really seek and value relationships and friendships, and then also intuition is always it's always a sort of if you will. A coming together of experience, just smarts sometimes, things you've seen that you may have not have noticed you've seen, but they just sort of whisper in the back of your head. And 6 months ago, I couldn't have put my finger when somebody asked me to explain, hey, why are you insisting on working with this small business instead of that one? And I couldn't explain it to you. Well, now the answer is obvious, and that's what usually intuition means. Like sometimes you can't explain what it is, but when the reason becomes obvious, that's when you know. Like, oh, right, that's what it was. I just didn't know what it looked like.
What a great way to put it, man. That's fantastic. I love that. Well, okay, so you got that squared away. And what about? Tell me about the IRC, the Independent Restaurant Coalition. You've been involved with that, is that right?
Yeah, more as not actively, more passively as an advocate.
Okay.
A number of my friends are very involved in doing a lot of the legwork. I'm just sort of helping either read through some of the drafts, which a friend that's very involved, Chidi Kumar from Garland and Raleigh, she sent me a draft to look at that I kind of gave her some feedback on. But the National Restaurant Association and all of the restaurant associations, the NCRLA for North Carolina, the GRA for Georgia, the two areas I'm in, they do great work. They do fantastic work. But representation for them, if they were to take a look at who their biggest bulk of their membership is, it's probably large franchises and chains.
Sure.
And I really believe that every town should have its own independent restaurant association. Asheville does. It's called the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, that advocates for, the non-chains, non-franchises. So I think the IRC is was born of a gap, if you will, in the marketplace for that kind of representation for independent restaurants. I'll be curious to see if this becomes a catalyst for that becoming a thing that every city adopts. So I'm not sure what the question was.
No. I'm just, I've noticed that came together quickly, and it seems to be being managed really well. I've been very impressed with that, and glad to see that it's gotten a lot of support. I think, they're asking for signatures, and I think they've gotten, well over north of 20,000 now, or north of 25,000 and counting, and I believe looks like they have an executive director. So I've just been pleased to see that, because I've always felt like y'all, being the people, independent restaurants, our audience, the people we serve, need, some advocacy and need a way to both, locally and nationally to have a voice, because you're right, it's, oftentimes in something like this, the immediate needs are filled, or at least the chains and large franchise organizations have an ability. They have lobbyists. They have they have ways to advocate for themselves, where y'all don't quite as much. So it's been good to see that.
It's been great. Also you get a bunch of you get any kind of celebrity chef, quote unquote, and they usually can get the ear of a congressman or a senator, or at least a little bit of attention. So that in that way, there's a little bit of star power doesn't hurt when putting together a coalition like that. But if I'm being sort of completely candid, as I often am, as you know me to be, it's like I'm just wired to not depend or count on somebody else doing the heavy lifting for me.
Yep.
I think that it's important. Here's what I enjoy about the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, and something like a coalition like the IRC could turn into, is this support system, network, friendships, relationships, things where you meet people and form these closer relationships, that where you can say, hey, we can work with each other, we can do this, we can do that. Trying to put them together as a sort of a lobbying force, if you will, for a group, it gets complicated, because it's like at some point not everybody wants the same thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So you start sort of drifting towards the mean, if you will, or the middle, in terms of what you're representing and lobbying for, and it's really hard for that to fit everybody's needs. In a very specific case like this, it's working, but often it doesn't. And
Yep.
Again, the NRA or the not Rifle Association, National Restaurant Association, the GRA and PRLA are examples of that. To where in a moment of crisis like this, they're lobbying for the sort of towards their median, towards who their largest representation is. So, and they're not going to be able to do something that fits everybody's needs. And so I just come wired naturally, Will, for a certain amount of self-sufficiency.
Sure.
And just really believe in this idea of, you got to sort of like, you can't wait for somebody else to help to figure out how to solve your problems. It's like you've got to go out there and hustle and figure out a situation or a solution that works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you as much as you can help other people while doing it, absolutely. That's what we're all put on earth to do. But anyways, I don't know if I'm articulating this well, but I think you kind of know that I come in wired to say, like, hey, I need to take care of my people first, my team first, and what is the best resources. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to say, well, I'm going to throw my lot into this other group over there and see what happens. So I sort of stayed back a little bit, I think. I hung back from really jumping in to the pond, so to speak, with demanding that, you know, our government or Congress sort of, you know, fix problems that go way beyond what we're currently dealing with right now. What we're dealing with right now is the end result of sort of just a cycle that, you know, values certain businesses higher than others. So.
Well, I think you're right.
Anyways, that's my best shot at explaining it.
No, I think that's great, Meherwan, and I think it's very wise. You need to, you know, if the other organizations wind up being able to help, or it does help, that's great. But I think, you know, to your point, you have to advocate for yourself, take care of yourself, take care of your team, and don't rely on anything else. Don't count on anything else. If it comes through, great. But you've only got so much time and so much energy, and
yeah, I mean, I'm just always wary of a false hope of saying, hey, this group or this movement is going to come to save the day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's important for just long-term cultural changes. I think it's important to have movements that change, that shift how people think about things. But it's very hard in moments of crisis to say, hey, you know, I'm going to depend on this movement to save my ass today.
Absolutely. What have you felt pretty good about what's been done so far from a legislative perspective, and then what else do you think would help folks like yourself?
Well, no, I think the way the SBA, I mean, the SBA program, the way it's been rolled out now that I'm the receiving end of it, the system may seem gunked up in terms of the banks unable to process the amount of applications that are coming through. So there's a logistical issue there with the PPP program. But now that I'm on the receiving end of it, the way they want to implement it, actually, I'm recognizing, okay, it's not completely insane. They're not just throwing $250 billion into the wind. They really are... essentially, these are loans. We got to pay them back. And there's strict guidelines about what we can and can't use the money for. And the interest rate is low, which is great. I mean, that's the way it should be because, you know, this is no different than in 2008, 2009 when major financial institutions were getting free money from the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And we got to pay it back in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, it was 10 years and it's shortened it to 2, and I know a lot of people are upset that it's such a short-term payback. But I think that forces you, when you take the money, to be really cognizant of the fact that you're going to try to use this money to turn your business around.
Sure.
This isn't a you know, a bailout to go do something else with or have a backup plan. You know what I mean? So so I felt like that part, even though the actual logistics of banks processing applications and all that's gunked up, but you know, how many businesses are applying? I forget what the amount is, but it's insane.
It's
the
insane.
SBA's never handled this kind of volume. Banks have never handled this kind of volume. So that's where those personal relationships have come in and make a difference, whether you get ahead of the line or not. So that's how I feel about I mean, I'm treating the money that we got from the SBA not as sort of a payout here. I'm like, no, this is a very strategic amount of money that we're borrowing for a very strategic purpose, and we have a plan for that. With the part that's really been difficult for me to wrap my head around has been the unemployment benefit of the extra $600 a week over and above sort of the base state unemployment number. And I think that it's a great number. I mean, it sort of falls right in the middle of how much people can earn. But the amount of time that income is going to be paid out is going to have an impact on whether people want to come back to work or not.
How long is it paid out?
So initially it was supposed to be 4 months. So, you know, that they'd be paying $600 a week in addition to state unemployment for up till the end of June. The end of July. So through August 1st, and then I just heard recently that there may be talk of that extending even further. So, I guess if we are to try to reopen our economy and reopen our restaurants, sure. Now, a manager that's making maybe $60,000 a year or $50,000 a year wants to come back to work, just because they're making less money on unemployment, or B, even if they're making about the same on unemployment, they're coming back to a career path and wanting to sort of go back to work, if you will. But if I'm a dishwasher, and I'm not speaking for all dishwashers, I'm just saying if me personally speaking, was a dishwasher, and I got to go back to work for $13 an hour, or I can stay at home and ride this thing out to the end of July and get $950 a week between state and the extra $600, effectively earning $52,000 a year. You've suddenly given me a very hard, it's a hard choice to want to go back to, scrubbing dishes in a kitchen for $30,000 a year.
Wait, $950 a week? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so the most that you can qualify for state is about $350 a week, right? So if you were making $36,000 a year, you'll probably get $350 a week for unemployment, give or take. And the $600 is just a flat rate on top of that. A flat $600, no questions asked. It doesn't matter how much you made and how much state's giving you. Whether the state's giving you $50 or $350, you still get the $600. So for anybody that's making in that $36,000 a year range, whether they were waiting tables or whatever have you, they're effectively earning the equivalent of almost $52,000 a year through the end of August. I'm not saying that somebody shouldn't be given that kind of financial help if they need it, but by throwing out a flat rate number, there's a bunch of people that were used to making a lot more than that but have to live in a lot less, and then there's a bunch of people that were making a lot less than that, and suddenly you're paying them a lot more. And there's just an inequity in the system over there that penalizes one group and unduly advantageous another group. So,
well, I will echo that. If I were a dishwasher,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say I'd echo what you said. I mean, if I were a dishwasher or whatever the job is. I'll stay at home. I'll assume I'll be able to get a job when I'm done with that. But I'll stay at home. And of course, if it were you or me, I think what we would probably do is stay at home and then also try to figure out a way to make additional, get something else started, a side project. But man, that's a wow.
And that's going to be paid out not just to people that were in payroll, but they've expanded it to self-employed. Contractors, gig workers, so an Uber driver, or or somebody that just works part-time, doing a part-time gig. I mean, I know of people that are essentially, just sort of essentially self-employed, making a minimal amount of work, pursuing an artistic, career or whatever have you, where suddenly they're, signing up for unemployment because of the amount of money that they stand to get every week by just saying that, oh yeah, I was affected by COVID-19 and I'm unemployed. So I think a good intention by Congress was just really sort of heavy-handedly just administered across the board. A handful of people tried saying something along the lines of like, wait a minute, this just seems like it could cause an inequity in the labor market, when it's time to get back to work, and a disincentivization in the labor market. But those voices were drowned out by the overwhelming sort of push to say, no, we got to help people, which I'm completely on board with. So, and here's the other part of it that I'd say, Will, that I see as a problem is so between now and however long this program lasts, and let's say it's to the end of July, anybody trying to hire somebody is going to have to pay significantly higher than the old market rates, right? Because you have to incentivize somebody to say, I'm going to give up on unemployment and come to work, especially in an environment where somebody could be concerned about their health, right? But come the end of July, let's say this thing runs out, you have a whole bunch of people suddenly flooding the marketplace looking for work. Right? I mean, I forget what the unemployment rate is, but they're almost all at the same time, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm not a macroeconomist. I'm not a labor economist. I'm just a business guy that understands my micro labor pool of who's available to do what jobs and what the going market rate is, and my entire financial model has been based on labor costs, because that's such a big part, as you know, Will, of any restaurant operation. It's 30 to 40% of your overhead is your labor. So everything you build that's the biggest nut that you build around how much you charge for your food, how many covers you do, square footage your restaurant is, and that number is being messed with big time right now.
Sure.
So it creates a certain amount of unpredictability, and I don't know what it's going to look like when I try to reopen, even if the customers are ready to come back.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that earlier about, trying to figure out a way to forecast for this. It's just I just don't understand it. I don't understand how you could possibly do it. It's going to be a big challenge for y'all to reopen, not knowing are people going to change their habits now because they are concerned about social I mean, is there some sort of psychological scarring that takes a long time to heal? Is there it's a very big unknown.
It is a big unknown, Will, and I think, this is sort of my last thoughts on this part of the conversation, which is what does it look like when we try to reopen? I think that if restaurateurs are imagining that we'll reopen and within some reasonable amount of time, our restaurants will go back to being full again. I think that's dangerous because there is an incredible amount of assumptions rational assumptions to say that might not be the case for a long time because of all the things you said. Psychology of the customer, fear, whether this virus keeps reappearing, how much the news coverage of this is scaring everybody, whether we develop a vaccine in time or not, whether testing and so on and so happens. So what we're doing is pretending for a second that the board itself is new. That we're not trying to return to the old board and place the pieces back where they used to be. We just said, it's not even wipe the board clean. It's a new board. And we're still in the food business. And what does the new board potentially look like? And my best analysis is that people are going to be nervous of catching the virus for a long time.
Yep.
That there's going to be high-risk groups of our population that are going to be even obviously more afraid and more nervous, and that, but the people do want to eat, and they do want to eat food that's been prepared by a restaurant, and they're going to flock and go to environments where they feel one of three things: that there's got good brand recognition before the virus, we know these people, we like them, we like their food, that's why we're willing to take a risk of ordering the food from these people, right? Because we like it and we like what they are. Number two is we feel safe. That we feel like if we buy food from this organization, that there's a certain amount of safety built into it that goes over and above any fear you may have catching the virus. And number three, the physicality of it, as in not only do you want to feel safe, but you have to see it. So you have to experience a logistical setup that proves the feeling that you have intrinsically inside of you, the feeling of trust that you have. Of a business, well, that trust is going to have to be, visibly available to see for a customer. And here's a perfect example. If you go by a Chick-fil-A right now, the line is probably to the street, if not to the freeway, of cars. And the reason being is, it's a brand people like. They have a certain amount of trust. Chick-fil-A has built up a great operational team for a long time, and they're really good at what they do. Yep. And number three, when you drive, you can see that they've set up their systems to, with the masks and the gloves and the social distancing and how they take your order, and you don't touch anything that they touch, and so on and so forth. Well, that's how I'm thinking right now. Is I'm thinking to myself, how do I take my existing businesses and create those unique environments where customers say, we like Buxton Hall, we like Chai Paini, we like the food, we like Bochiwala, we like the food there, we want it. Number two, we trust them because they've always been good and they've had a reputation for being trustworthy. And I'm saying trust is with a big T here, overall, not just about health, right?
Sure, yep.
That we trust that if these guys say they're going to do something, they're actually going to do it, right? And then number three, when I go there, I experience it. I see it physically, the small T, the part where they are wearing the masks and the gloves, and they set up a really good system to where I feel I can come here and get back and go. Well, I think we're going to operate in that mode, I'm saying, for an unknown amount of time. And I could be wrong, in which case being wrong is right. Like, if I'm wrong and businesses come back to usual, my restaurants are still there. They're not going anywhere. Yeah, it's easy for me to reopen those things and go back to business as usual. What's way harder is to not bury your head in the sand and say, what if that doesn't happen? What can I do today to make sure that if that doesn't happen, if people don't just come in, that I've already got a model figured out to take care of the people's desire to want to eat food. So that's my take on the whole thing.
Well, you know, I'm not surprised, and I think it's wise in using the precautionary principle. And look, you nailed it. Don't bury your head in the sand with this stuff, because people are gonna. Yeah, I think first of all, people are cooped up. They are going to want to go out. Many of them are. But the flip side of that coin is, if they went out X number of times a month, you know, prior to this, do they go out 100% of X going forward for a while? Do they go out 75% of X, 50% of X? Who knows? But I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot of people also that don't have as much disposable income, and or that are reassessing their own personal financial planning and saying, we got to save a little bit more money from now on. We can't just be living, you know, leveraged and paycheck to paycheck. We got to, you know, we learned we can cook more at home now, so we should do that more. And you know, you're going to have that too. All that stuff is totally unpredictable. Who has
Absolutely.
a clue? I mean, by the way, what if it comes back in the, you know, what if this thing circles back in the fall and we haven't, we don't have a vaccine yet or whatever, and then like you got to kind of be ready for that to happen again, and then what happens with what's the downstream effect of that on our psychology and all that stuff? So I think you're nailing it, man.
I mean, this could be an annual thing where every year we have to shut down for a month, and that's something we've never done before, and now we got to do it. You know, so you never know. And I think planning on what you can do as an operator, as a restaurant, as an owner, to adapt to that new environment is critical. And if you're not thinking about it now, you're going to be behind the eight ball once it actually starts happening. It's going to be very hard to pivot if you're not thinking about it now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we're sitting here thinking, okay, we had 7,200 or so customers before all this. You know, how many are we going to have a year from now? That just if based on how many are going to make it. You know, how many are going to be able to plan like you're talking about, adjust their business model, adjust their practices? Did they already have the trust built up? Or, you know, I don't know, are their landlords working with them? All the things that, you know, so I've got to imagine there's going to be some measurable percentage of folks that unfortunately won't make it. We have to plan for that. We have to plan for people saying, okay, well, you know, some businesses are saying, what you have right now is absolutely mission critical because it's keeping us, you know, it's giving us a one-click way to stay up with our team. That's great. But then there's also, you know, the coffee shop with 10 employees that was paying us, you know, $30 a month prior. That's probably like, I don't need that, you know. So it's just, there's so many things to think about through this. But I really do think that in looking back several years from now, we'll all say, those that make it through, will say we are better off. You know, our business is better and stronger and more wiser because of that. As much as it sucked, it forced our hand to be even better prepared, plan even better, save even more, nail down our processes and the way we do business even better, so on and so forth. It sucks right now. It does. Yeah. But as with those things, you know, it can either destroy you or it can make you better, right? I mean, it's, you know, that's just it.
Yeah. I mean, for you guys, Will, I mean, I honestly, here's what I've been saying a lot nowadays. Look, once a certain segment of our population is going to feel comfortable going back out again. I mean, at the end of the day, 80% of us are going to catch this thing and not even know, so we caught it, right?
Yeah.
But 20% still of a high-risk group is still a pretty large number, and that makes all of us afraid because you don't know who it's going to be necessarily. But my point is, at some point, people are going to be ready to go out and, in whatever capacity, want to engage back in business. And I really believe that coming out of a trauma like this, we're going to want to flock to the people and the places that make us feel good about ourselves, comfort us, and in the past have cared for us, like that we have a strong emotional connection with.
Yes.
Right? And I think you guys as a brand have built a really strong emotional connection with your customers. And I think that the question isn't, will they come back? Or will they want to come back? The question is absolutely. It's just that you guys will also have to figure out, well, what are we going to offer on this new playing field? Because if we have the right tools that people in this new economy are going to be looking for, the other stuff is easy. They like us. They want to do business with us.
Yeah.
They have a strong emotional connection. If anything, they're going to seek that out even more than before. Going back to my original analogy of staying with First Bank, well, guess what just happened? It's doubled down on our business's mindset of this is how we're going to do business moving forward.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah, that's right.
This is how we're going to do business. We're going to part of preparing for something like this happening again or being wiser for it is recognizing the things that we did right that helped us when we hit the situation. And a big part of it's going to be is maintaining those personal relationships stronger than ever before. And you guys have done an amazing job of creating those relationships. People will want to come back to do business with Schedule Fly. And I know you guys are smart enough to say, hey, here's what we have to offer now for all of you folks that need it.
Yep. 100%, my friend. Well, we've been, I tell you, I feel very fortunate. I tell you, we Wes and I were talking about this recently. Thank goodness this is a time where there's been so many opportunities over the years to raise capital and try to, add on a bunch of stuff, add on a bunch of people, throw a bunch of money into sales and marketing, accelerate growth. And gosh knows, I'm so thankful right now. There's just 5 of us. We have no outside investors. We've been running in a really good margin conservatively for a long time. So we are thankful that however long this roll, whatever it is, we're here, right? Like we'll be here for however many customers we wind up having through this and going forward. We're here, and thank goodness for that. We have always and will always do everything we can to have that kind of a connection with our customers. It's been very important all along. And by the way, we've gotten obviously, hundreds or thousands of calls and emails the last couple of weeks. And we've been real fortunate too, to be able to tell people, look, if you're, I know you're calling to cancel, if you're going to close your business for good, then we'll turn off the account and, you're done. That's fine. And we wish the best, and we feel for you, and we're here if you ever need anything. If you're closing your doors temporarily and you can't pay us, hey man, I'll tell you what, it's on us. Like, we'll turn off your billing, but you don't need to cut off this account. Keep using it, because right now you need to be able to engage your team and keep them connected, and they need to feel connected. This isolation is tough psychologically. So for mental health reasons alone, it's on us. Send as many texts, eat whatever you need to do. We got it covered. And that's been we've been real fortunate to be able to do that. We've been thankful for that. But.
Yeah, well, it's been a huge asset to us. We use Schedule Fly to communicate, constantly with everything that we're talking about our team. So I'm glad you're doing that. It's a really smart thing to do, and I can tell you, we're just the heck out of Schedule Fly right now for messaging. Maybe not for scheduling, but certainly for the messages.
Well, good, man. Well, listen, Meherwan, dude, I cannot thank you enough, man.
No worries.
I can't wait to see you again. That's the other thing. To your point, I can't wait to feel like when I want to, I can get in my car and drive to Asheville, or I can get on that train and drive it to Raleigh and just see the people that, we've been so fortunate to serve, that I always enjoy seeing. But my goodness, I can't wait. And I know there's so many of your customers that, that's how that you're right about that. I mean, people just want to see y'all now. They want to see the businesses that they care about, and spend time with them. So it's going to be an interesting time. And I
think everything you're saying is right on, man. Appreciate it. It's funny. While we were talking, I got a text and I looked at it casually, and it was Katie, our bookkeeper, sending it. Our finance manager sending $50 check that a customer just randomly sent in, saying for the staff.
Oh man, that's
Random,
awesome.
like, no, we're not doing a fundraiser. We're not selling gift cards or anything like that. She's just sending a check saying, for the staff, thinking about you guys. And I don't even know who the person is. So yeah, there's people out there. They love the businesses. They've loved before, and they'll come back to them when this is all over. Look forward to seeing you too.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I bought one in your auction, by the way. I bought a shirt, and
Cool.
I think I put a note in there like just keep it there, and because that's just like all the more reason once we're allowed to and able to, and it's safe to, I'm going to drive up there and see you, and I'll get the shirt then. So, well, listen, Meherwan, thank you very much. Thank you to the team, everybody there. Tell them hello, and as always, man, if you need anything, you know where I am, and just really appreciate the time. And this is great content for great wisdom and advice. And the way you think about things, I know this is going to help a lot of people, and a lot of people have really been dialing into this podcast more than ever lately just to hear what people are thinking, hear what they're doing. There's so much noise, and there's so much just, people just trying to figure out what to do. So folks like you that are doing this, man, it's a really big benefit to a lot of people out there that need, a little bit of help with just navigating this stuff right now. So thank you.
Always a pleasure, Bo. Thank you for the call. Thank you for giving me the time, and I can't wait to see you and hand you that shirt in purchase.
All right,
Take care, my friend.
All right, see you, Meherwan.
See you later.